A true horror story in 3 acts.
ACT The Discovery.
In the oppressive humidity of August 1987, within the fog-veiled sprawl of Ravenscroft, a fictional city nestled in the misty valleys of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient evergreens loomed like silent guardians over rain-slicked streets and forgotten mills, whispered secrets to the wind, a horror unfolded that would forever scar the collective psyche of its inhabitants.
Ravenscroft was a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred. Its economy built on logging and shadowy industries that attracted drifters and dreamers alike. The air always carried the scent of pine resin and damp earth, but on certain nights, it thickened with something darker, an unspoken dread that clung to the soul like dew on spiderwebs.
Our story begins in the dimly lit corners of Milford District, a rundown neighborhood where streetlights flickered erratically, casting elongated shadows that danced like specters. At 842 Evergreen Lane stood an old pulp mill depot, a cavernous structure of rusted metal and stacked pallets of recycled wood pulp, its chain-link fence sagging under the weight of years.
By day, it was a hub of monotonous labor, workers in grease-stained overalls loading trucks that growled like beasts as they departed, hauling loads to distant factories. But on the evening of August 12th, as the sun dipped below the jagged horizon and a perpetual twilight settled in, the depot became the stage for an unimaginable atrocity.
Elias Thorne, a weary foreman in his late 40s with weathered skin and eyes hollowed by too many graveyard shifts, arrived early the next morning. The fog was thick that day, rolling in from the nearby river like a living entity, muffling sounds and obscuring visions. Elias sipped his thermos of black coffee, the bitter brew doing little to shake off the chill that had seeped into his bones overnight. He unlocked the gate with a jangle of keys, the padlock clicking open with a sound that echoed unnaturally loud in the stillness.
As he trudged toward the back storage yard, a labyrinth of towering pulp stacks that formed narrow aisles like a maze designed by madness, his boots snagged on something soft, uneven.
At first, he thought it was a discarded tarp, sodden from the night's rain. But as he knelt, his flashlight beam pierced the gloom, revealing a horror that froze his blood. There, nestled in a crude bed of shredded pulp fibers, lay the body of a young woman. She was petite, perhaps in her mid-20s, with pale skin now marred by a grotesque tableau of wounds. Deep stab marks crisscrossed her torso, savage, deliberate slashes that had torn through fabric and flesh alike. Her clothes were disarrayed, evidence of a violation so brutal it spoke of primal rage. Blood had congealed in dark pools, soaking the pulp beneath her into a pulpy mass that resembled the aftermath of a storm-ravaged forest. Her eyes, wide open in eternal shock, stared blankly at the overcast sky, as if pleading with the heavens for answers that would never come.
Elias stumbled back, his coffee spilling in a hot arc across the ground. His breath came in ragged gasps, the world tilting as nausea surged. He fumbled for his walkie-talkie, his voice a cracked whisper. "Call the sheriff. God, call anyone. There's a girl here. She's gone." Sirens would soon wail through the fog, but in that moment, the depot felt isolated, a pocket of hell cut off from the world.
Act 2, The Investigation.
Word of the discovery spread like wildfire through Ravenscroft, igniting fear in a town already plagued by urban legends of vanishings in the woods. The victim was unidentified, a Jane Doe with no wallet, no jewelry, just a tattered scarf clutched in her rigid hand, embroidered with faded initials that could have been AL or mere stains. Estimated at 5'3" tall, with auburn hair matted by blood and rain, she became a symbol of the unknown, her story a void that begged to be filled.
The local sheriff's department, led by Detective Harlan Voss, a stoic man in his 50s with a scarred cheek from a long-ago bar fight and a reputation for dogged persistence, took charge. Voss had seen his share of tragedies in Ravenscroft, logging accidents that mangled bodies beyond recognition, domestic disputes turned deadly. But this reeked of something calculated, intimate, like a predator toying with prey.
"What have we got, Lena?" Voss asked his deputy. Lena Crow, a sharp-witted woman in her 30s with a no-nonsense ponytail and eyes that missed nothing.
Female victim, approximately 5'3", auburn hair, mid-20s I'd guess, multiple stab wounds to the torso, signs of sexual assault. No ID on her except this scarf, Crow reported, holding up the evidence bag. Initials AL or just stains. Too faded to be certain, sir. Coroner puts time of death between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. last night.
No witnesses? No one heard anything? Voss questioned, his eyes scanning the crime scene.
Nothing concrete. A neighbor claims they heard a woman scream around midnight, but dismissed it as kids partying.
Voss knelt beside the body, his gloved hands examining the area around it. This wasn't random. They knew this place, knew the fence was weak back here, knew there'd be no security.
Inside job, you think? Crow asked, following his gaze to the bent panel in the fence.
Or someone who used to work here. Check the employee logs, past and present. I want names.
The crime scene was a puzzle wrapped in enigma. The knife wasn't found with the body. It turned up 3 days later during a routine sweep, wedged atop a rusted ventilator on the depot's roof, its blade encrusted with dried gore.
They threw it up there to hide it, Voss muttered to Crow as they examined the weapon. But why not take it? Arrogance? Or a message?
The escape route added to the mystery, not through the main gate, which remained chained, but via a side panel where the fence had been pried open from inside, bent just enough for 2 men to slip through, suggesting familiarity with the depot's weak points.
Weeks bled into months, the fog of Ravenscroft mirroring the murkiness of the case. Voss obsessed, his nights haunted by visions of the woman's final struggle, her cries lost in the windswept yard, her hands clawing at the pulp as life ebbed away. He interviewed depot workers, grizzled veterans who swore they'd seen nothing unusual, young temps with alibis as shaky as the town's economy. Tips poured in, a shadowy figure spotted near the fence that night, a woman's laugh cut short in the distance, but they evaporated like mist under scrutiny.
Then, a thread pulled loose. A former employee named Garrett Slade emerged from the records, a lanky man in his 30s with a criminal history of bar brawls and theft, fired from the depot 6 months prior for chronic lateness. He lived in a rundown trailer park on the outskirts, close enough to stalk the area.
Brought in for questioning, Garrett sat in the dimly lit interrogation room, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the table. Voss leaned in, his voice a low growl. You knew that yard like your own backyard. Tell me, Garrett, where were you on August 12th?
ECT-3, The Confession.
The confession came haltingly at first, then in a flood of chilling detail. Garrett wasn't alone. He implicated his drinking buddy, Harlan Jax Reed, a transient mechanic with a tattooed neck and eyes cold as the river depths.
It started at the annual Harvest Moon Festival in Milford Park, a raucous event where Ravenscroft's residents drowned their woes in beer tents and carnival games under strings of flickering lights. Music thumped from speakers, laughter mingled with the sizzle of food trucks, the air thick with fried dough and spilled ale. Garrett and Jax, already slurring from cheap whiskey, scanned the crowd.
They spotted her, Amelia Larkspur, or so we'd imagine her name in this tale, a fictional wanderer new to town, with a backpack slung over her shoulder and a trusting smile that lit her face like a fleeting sunbeam through clouds. She was alone, perhaps hitchhiking through, drawn to the festival's warmth.
Hey, pretty thing, Garrett recalled, leering, his breath reeking of liquor. Need a lift? We're heading out. Got a spot by the river for some real fun.
Amelia hesitated, but the crowd's energy and their promises of adventure coaxed her into their battered pickup truck. The drive wound through fog-shrouded roads, conversation laced with flirtation that soured into coercion. Garrett veered toward the depot, his old workplace, the fence a familiar barrier.
I know a quiet place, he said, his tone shifting to something predatory. They parked in the shadows, boosted her over the wire, her laughter nervous now, protests dismissed as jokes.
Inside, the yard was a moonlit arena of isolation. Garrett claimed it began consensual, but the truth twisted darker. Clothes torn, resistance met with force. As Jax pinned her down on the pulp bed, Garrett's mind fractured. A utility knife from a nearby crate gleamed in his hand.
Something snapped, he whispered in confession, his voice hollow. The blade descended, piercing flesh with a wet thud, blood blooming like ink on paper. Amelia's scream pierced the night, but the fog muffled it, the trees absorbing her terror. She fought, nails raking skin, but Jax seized the knife, his strikes frenzied, each one a punctuation of finality until her body went limp, the yard reclaiming its silence.
Panic ensued, but not guilt. They hurled the knife onto the roof, fled through the pried fence. Hours later, in his trailer, Garrett jolted awake, personal effects left behind, a wallet with ID that could doom them.
We forgot it, he hissed to Jax over the phone. They returned, hearts pounding, the body a grotesque sentinel as they rifled through the bloodied pulp, pocketing evidence amid the congealing mess. A loose fence panel clanged, nearly alerting a passing car, but they melted into the fog.
In the sheriff's office, their words echoed with detachment. It got out of hand, Garrett shrugged. She was fading anyway, Jax added coldly. Arrests followed, trials that gripped Ravenscroft with morbid fascination. Yet Amelia's identity remained a ghost, buried unnamed, her backstory a void. Was she a runaway artist, a lost soul fleeing demons? The town whispered of curses in the woods, of spirits claiming the unwary.
Years later, Ravenscroft's fog still carries her echo, a reminder that horror doesn't lurk in the unknown. It hides in plain sight, waiting for the mist to clear just enough to strike. And in the depot, now abandoned, workers swear they hear faint cries on windy nights, the pulp stacks shifting like restless graves.